Hello, welcome to QUT News.
Hello.
And leading this bulletin, new research showing Labor is on track to win the election. The party's support has jumped heading into the last week. The most recent polling has Bill Shorten a hair in front of Scott Morrison. The opposition favoured by 51% of voters on a two-party preferred basis. And in a move to increase support, Labor has announced it'll match the LNP's latest first home buyers policy.
To be honest, what I think is that he has a problem with younger voters, so at the last minute he's decided to come up with something.
Bill Shorten initially labelled the policy a last-ditch effort by the coalition, but then announced he would mimic the change, lowering deposits to 5%.
Because we're the party of first home buyers, good ideas we will get behind.
The Labor leader has begun his final week of campaigning in Sydney, in the marginal seat of Reid. He's conducting a final sweep to rally last-minute support. With such a thin margin and a majority of undecided voters, Saturday's result may still swing either way. Tim Lofthouse, QUT News.
Coalition leader Scott Morrison was out early selling his plans to drop the first home deposit dramatically. He's counting on it to swing young votes.
This is a huge boost to first home buyers. They only need to come up with 5% rather than 20% as their deposit.
It's targeted to those on lower to middle income, so $125,000 for single income and $200,000 if you're both first home buyers.
It's been presented as a better alternative to Labor's reforms to negative gearing and capital gains tax, which Mr Morrison says would leave everyone at a loss.
What that means is you have fewer buyers in the market, which decreases the property value of everybody's home.
The government says the opposition's policies simply do not support first home buyers.
Labor's housing taxes affects everybody's property value and affects everybody's rent. Rent's up, value's down. That's not a good plan.
It would be capped at 10,000 loans per year, around a tenth of the home loans given out every year. With both the Coalition and Labor now targeting young home buyers, how much better off do they think they'll be?
I think that sounds like a good thing. I mean, houses are so expensive. So a fifth of the price for any house, I don't know if I'll ever have that much, you know. So 5% would probably be a lot easier.
That's really good, I think. Yeah, it'd be easier to get a house loan, right?
I think it definitely encouraged me more because then you don't have to obviously put down as much deposit, you don't have to make as much money.
If the Coalition is elected, their scheme will kick in next January. Laura Daly, QUT News.
Domestic violence is a huge problem in Australia. In Queensland alone, 3 court DV orders are breached every hour, so raising awareness is crucial.
It was a packed house as support groups and domestic violence victims gathered in West End.
I'm a survivor, so thank you.
Violence impacts tens of thousands of families. 74% of domestic violence in Queensland comes from intimate relationships, and a further 26% is suffered at the hands of family members.
We're here today to acknowledge that domestic violence, whether people know it or not, touches everyone's life.
May is Domestic and Family Violence Prevention Month. It promotes awareness, a no-tolerance message, and encourages people to seek help.
We're seeing too many women who are facing very extreme violence and injury, and their lives are controlled in a way that's unacceptable.
Brisbane has seen a 323% increase in domestic violence order breaches from 2001 to 2018, with 27,500 coming just last year.
Despite that, support workers say they are making a difference.
But we think we're making progress and we're proud of that progress.
Queensland Police backs efforts to curb violence, worried about the messages it teaches our youth.
Look after those around us, treat everyone with respect, but particularly treat children and teach children what's right and wrong.
James Stevens, QUT News.
A Sydney FC fan and his Down syndrome daughter have been thrown out of a football game. The father was involved in an argument with security, ostensibly over the use of a bathroom.
It was seen by many as distressing and hurtful, and the father of a young girl showed it. Rory Carroll claimed that's what it was all about, after a family outing to watch Sydney and Melbourne victory in the semi-finals. He felt security denied him access to a restroom for his disabled daughter.
You guys want to kick me out because I can't take my... No. You want to kick me out because he said so, because I can't take my disabled daughter 5 metres. And otherwise I have to go over there.
A video posted on social media shows the man being escorted out by police. Other fans are heard booing in support of the father. Later, Mr. Carroll took to Twitter to share his side of events.
We've got a family-friendly club and all match days are like that at Sydney FC, so I'm sure they'll figure it out, yeah.
New South Wales Police said Mr. Carroll had refused to cooperate with repeated requests over seating protocol. Football Australia is investigating. Isabella McGee, QUT News.
Gold Coast Police are searching for 2 men wanted for burning 3 vehicles. They say the men broke into a car yard and drove an ice cream truck around before setting it alight. Flames quickly spread to neighbouring vehicles, destroying them. Police asked the public for help to find the offenders, who they believe are in their 20s.
NAPLAN testing kicks off across the country on Tuesday, but a tech-savvy switch to doing it online hasn't come without controversy.
More than 250,000 Queensland kids from grades 3, 5, 7 and 9 will take part in this year's testing, and most will be without pens and pencils. But as NAPLAN embraces the digital world, there's concern that technical problems could disrupt the rollout. A number of students have been struggling to log on during recent practice exams. Some login times have blown out to 30 minutes, with others not successful at all.
Delivering NAPLAN online creates an artificial construct. Children are used to being assessed in paper form. Getting them assessed in a digital form in a platform that's unreliable creates a great deal of anxiety.
NAPLAN is designed to monitor students' progress and assess key areas of strength and development. Every test commences at the same time, Australia-wide, to ensure the accuracy of results. But teachers are worried students will be at a disadvantage if computers freeze mid-test. Minister of Education and Industrial Relations Grace advises Queensland kids to give NAPLAN their 100%, just as they would in any other test. She also advises students to simply stay calm if their online test glitches. Despite opposition, all Australian schools will be expected to run the test online next year.
In future years, we'd prefer to see no NAPLAN at all, because come the end of the day, the most important tests that you have in your classroom are against the Australian curriculum.
As a precaution, this year all participating schools will be provided with paperback versions of the test. Isla Stanich, QUT News.
A delicate Bayside ecosystem is under threat from development. Toondah Harbour is the lifeblood of dozens of types of migratory birds and marine species.
Development giant Walker Corporation wants to build $1.3 billion worth of apartments, a hotel, a marina and a convention centre here. But locals are fighting back. The harbour is home to more than 40 bird species and is internationally protected.
Bigger problem with Toondah and impacts to birds is the high volume of disturbance that you're likely to produce when tens of thousands of people are living on the doorstep of where these birds occur.
But in 2013, the site was declared a priority development area. The Federal Environment Department was against the development proposal. Then that was rejected by the minister. Environmental experts say the process has become political.
I think that there's a clear sense that our current environmental regulations are not working.
But the local federal member stands by the government's decision.
I come from a city out here on Moreton Bay with 200 kilometres of coastline. We're asking about whether we can better use 500 metres of it that's already a degraded port. I don't know. Let's bring the scientists in.
Locals want the government to listen before it's too late for the harbour's flora and fauna. Locals are awaiting the next level of approval and are urging voters to vote for the birds this Saturday. Grace Desha, QUT News.
Looking again at our main story, the latest polls show Labor heading for an election win.
And still to come, the spectacle of an exploding volcano. A Myanmar pilot has saved the day after his aircraft's landing gear failed. The pilot safely put the jet on the runway with no front wheels. Videos on social media show smoke under the seats of the aircraft shortly after landing, as 89 passengers and crew evacuate. It's the second time in a week there's been an aircraft emergency in Myanmar. Another plane overshot the runway.
French police have again clashed with demonstrators. Yellow vest protests against President Emmanuel Macron entered their 26th consecutive weekend.
Shots rang out across the streets, pepper spray and tear gas filling the air as yellow vest protesters ran from police. The demonstration marking 26 consecutive weeks of unrest in France, as hundreds came out to protest President Emmanuel Macron's financial reform.
This is a successful protest in every aspect. There are a lot of people and a lot of police too, as always. This is a movement that will last even after the European election.
It's been 6 months since the grassroots rebellion erupted over the high cost of living, and it doesn't look like it's stopping anytime soon.
As long as this government does not want to truly reform the country, we will not give up.
Isabella McGee, QUT News.
Church services have resumed in Sri Lanka for the first time since the Easter Sunday bombings. There was tight security.
The faithful have come back in droves. Worshippers packing the pews again as Catholic churches open their doors for the first time since the terrorist attacks on Easter Sunday. The security presence remained high, however, outside services as soldiers stood alert and police checked attendees.
As Christians, we don't respond to terrorism with terrorism.
Church leaders suspended worship following the bombings, fearing further attacks would follow. 3 churches and 4 luxury hotels were targeted in attacks that killed 250 people. Despite the horrific acts, forgiveness was the message of the day.
We must forgive them. We must pray for them and bring them to the correct path.
Even though we have been through tough times, we are stronger than that will rise up through challenges, through love, kindness and forgiveness, and that is exactly what God has taught us.
Tim Lofthouse, QUT News. Anti-government protests have ended in a fiery display in Albania. Demonstrators want the government to call a snap election.
A crowd of protesters gathered outside the Albanian Prime Minister's office, throwing petrol bombs and staging rallies to press for early polls. Donning gas masks for protection, police tried to control the resistance, to no avail. Opposition leader Luzum Basha took to the stage to address hundreds of passionate supporters.
We are here today to send a firm and clear message. We will not allow you anymore to block our road towards Europe. Rama, go.
The president, Edi Rama, has dismissed all allegations. With no end in sight to protest, the local election is currently due to be held on June 30. Brittany Butler, QUT News.
A volcano in Ecuador has put on quite a show. El Reventador lit up the night sky with lava, following an increase in rumblings in recent weeks. Smoke billowed into the air above the volcano's crater, while incandescent rocks poured out under the moonlight. Authorities have warned tourists to stay away from the area.
Hundreds of Cubans have turned out for a gay pride march in Havana. The crowd paraded through the streets carrying rainbow flags, but were then stopped by security.
Marching from Havana's Central Park to the Seafront Boulevard, Cuban gay rights activists are taking steps towards equality and respect.
We just want equality, for diversity to be respected, just that, to march hand in hand and in peace. This march is not against anything, it's in favour of us.
Marches were met with resistance from police and security, as the government condemned the unauthorised display of activism.
You all know that this march is not authorised. We wanted to persuade you all, so why does it have to come to this? You all know that this march is not approved.
At least 3 people were arrested, with campaigners vowing to continue to fight for their rights. Brittany Butler, QUT News.
Contestants have strutted their stuff on the orange carpet for the opening of Eurovision. They brushed aside security concerns and calls for a boycott in Tel Aviv.
As contestants posed, police patrolled, following concerns the contest could be disrupted by a surge in cross-border violence, as Israel and Palestinian militants clash in Gaza.
Police are carrying out security measures both on the ground as well as at the sea.
making sure that there's enough security on the ground for the thousands of tourists.
An increased police presence, however, didn't deter tourists, dancing in the streets, enjoying the atmosphere.
Eurovision Song Contest is about peace and love, so we're here for that.
Despite calls for artists and broadcasters to boycott, no delegates have withdrawn. Instead, 41 contestants, including Australian singer Kate Miller-Heidke, took to the carpet.
I hope to do my best on stage. I love Israel, I love Tel Aviv, so I'm really happy to be here.
Semi-finals kick off this week, ahead of the grand final on Saturday. Chloe Maxwell, QUT News.
A huge water spout in Singapore has stunned onlookers. The incredible act of nature was caused by powerful thunderstorms. Social media footage shows the whirlwind of water just off the coast in Moreton Bay. The water tornado hung around for about 20 minutes before disappearing.
Now to sport. For the second week running, AFL's Gary Ablett has come under fire for a tackle and may have blemished his clean record.
Geelong's Gary Ablett will face the AFL tribunal again, after a high hit on North Melbourne Utilities' Sam Wright.
That's good technique, as long as you get them in the chest. As soon as it pops up a little bit and there's any contact to the head, then you're in dangerous territory.
The charge follows last round's historic one-match ban for Ablett, which was later overturned. Fremantle captain Nat Fyfe is also in trouble over a high elbow charge in the club's loss to Richmond. In league, the talk is more about brilliant play for once.
He's got a lot of options in his game right now. He's an absolute threat to everybody.
That's Rabbitohs coach Wayne Bennett on hooker Damien Cook. Bennett says Cook's performance was pivotal in the Rabbitohs' 32-16 win over North Queensland. And finally, celebrations are underway in Manchester after the last day of a dramatic season. Manchester City held on to the top spot, beating Brighton 4-1. Brittany Butler, QUT News.
The weather details are next with Dan Antonaglia.
And crazy Chinese bun fun.
Hello. Early morning showers took the shine off an otherwise mild autumn day in Brisbane. There was light rain across the southeast today. Temperatures on the coasts reached the mid-20s. Out west, Ipswich was a little cooler with a minimum of 14. Around Australia tomorrow, frost is expected in the nation's capital. Melbourne and Hobart are in for some rain, and clear skies across Darwin and Perth. Back to Queensland, and Tuesday will see rain across the state, with Mount Isa and Longreach set to miss the wet weather, with temperatures in the high 20s. Out on Moreton Bay tomorrow, expect easterly winds up to 15 knots, which sees below 1 metre. The sun is set to rise at 6:20 before setting at 5:09. It's a gloomy outlook for both coasts tomorrow, with more rain forecast. Expect a high of 24 down south and 25 on the sunny coast. And back to Brisbane, the rain looks to be hanging around for the rest of the week. The Bureau is forecasting at least a 50% chance of rain on Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. That's the weather for now. Back to you, Leanne.
Now here's the tough way to get a dessert bun for dinner. Scramble up a tower and grab as many as you can.
Mix in one 20-metre tower made of scaffold, cover it with some sweet buns, a traditional Chinese dessert and some athletic locals. That's the recipe for a crazy annual event on one of Hong Kong's outer islands. This is the end to a week-long Bun Festival that coincides with Buddha's birthday. And for some reason, residents do it at midnight. The idea is to pick lots of buns, although the person who gets the highest bun is traditionally blessed.
I think it's a very vibrant, and it shows the vibrancy of the city. It's definitely a challenge for me.
Thousands of people flock to the island for the event and a parade, where children dress up as gods and goddesses. The whole week is big for business.
I'd say we are going to sell 30,000 buns today. In terms of the whole festival, 60,000 all in all.
And that's a lot of calories. Chloe Maxwell, QUT News.
That brings you up to date with QUT News. Goodbye for now.
Goodbye.